Well, you made it. You've made it to public speaking. Some of you are diving right in early in your academic careers in order to get this prerequisite out of the way, and then you don't have to stress about it. Some of you have delayed, and this is your final semester, and now you're going to finally go ahead and dive in there, face your fear. Well, I'm glad you're here because I'm going to tell you now, public speaking is going to be one of the best choices for a course that you have chosen, whether that be early or late, because public speaking can enhance your academic career, your professional career, your community, your family. Let's go ahead and explore public speaking together. What we want to talk about today, the power of public speaking, the tradition of public speaking and conversation. There are similarities. Glossophobia, better known to you as the fear of public speaking, and the communication process that we utilize to build our public speaking. The power of public speaking is the basis for our communication, how we interact, how we get our messages out. It is the basis for our society itself. Through public speaking, we share our experiences, our dreams, our ideas, and we're able to persuade others. It is very powerful within our community that we develop that skill to publicly speak and that we're able to engage others. It is the basis for power in the relationships we have, businesses, and in government. It also will help your academic career, because while this might be your only public speaking class you take, you're going to utilize these skills in any program you are pursuing, whether that be from veterinary to legal to business. Public speaking will come up again, and you will use these skills throughout your academic time, your careers, and in your community. Public speaking began, well, it began with the birth of civilization. But truly, our study of it and our understanding of it and our teaching of it began with the ancient Greeks. It began with Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Aristotle is the most common one. He contributed to our understanding of rhetoric, persuasion, and public speaking. He gave us the 5 canons of rhetoric, invention, our purpose that we have for public speaking, what has motivated us, what is creating the need, the arrangement. How are we going to put that together? Are we going to go ahead and go with chronological, spatial? How are we doing this? The style. Is our style, are we using humor? Are we basing it off of logic? What is the format that we're using? Memory, not only our memory of the speech, but the memory that we send out from sending our messages to our audience. And finally, delivery. Delivery's changed a lot since the ancient Greeks. It used to be, while you're writing it, is it in a public forum? What's your setting? But now we have technology, and we're now encountering presenting online. We're doing Skypes. We're doing all different formats of public speaking. So the 5 canons are an important basis for how we craft our public speaking. Additionally, throughout the semester, we'll be talking about ethos, pathos, and logos. Another Aristotelian view, another method, where we craft our message based on our ethos, which is our credibility, our logos, the logic that we use. And absolutely the most persuasive portion of public speaking is the pathos. And pathos is the emotion. And it is through emotion that we oftentimes connect with our audience, we motivate them, and we share information that truly is impactful for them. Now, public speaking has changed a lot since those early days of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates. We are now into a time where within the last 100 years, communication has become a discipline of its own. It has borrowed much from philosophy, from psychology, sociology. Matter of fact, communication studies interlinks with most of the sciences that we see today. For people studying communication, we base it on 7 traditions. Those 7 traditions are rhetoric that goes back to those ancient Greeks and Aristotle, cybernetics, which came about in the 1940s and 50s to begin to understand how we communicate at a distance, whether that be a radio or Skype or Zoom, and how we have to modify our messages based on feedback. Social psychological, the psychological aspects that go into our communication and our messages. Social cultural, how our culture impacts the symbolism and how it impacts how we communicate. The phenomenological, the ability to take the perspective of others and share that in order to create a true bond, a true connection where we can engage in genuine dialogue. Rather than just talk at each other, we talk with each other. The semiotics, the symbols that we use, whether those be words, images, other things we use to communicate and the meanings behind those. And finally, the critical tradition, where we truly examine the power of communication in society. Now, as we examine these things, you don't have to memorize them. What this is to let you know that there are many ways of crafting our public speaking. And all these traditions do impact those in one form or another. Now, there are similarities between public speaking and conversation. And we're going to explore those really quickly so that you understand when you're talking to your audience, you're trying to engage them in a similar way that you would a conversation, especially for this class. In this class, we don't read our outlines to the audience. We don't memorize verbatim, word for word, the scripted outline of our speech. Instead, we use a format that's called extemporaneously speaking. And as you learn how to present, you'll understand this is having a conversation. You know the main points of your speech and you expand upon them. You share with your audience. And to do this effectively, same as when you're in a conversation with a person, you really need to have it organized so they understand it. You know, if you rush in and you're telling your family and your friends a story and they don't get it, you know you didn't organize it very well. And so organization, putting in a logical manner, whether that be chronological, spatial, whichever, so that way your audience can understand, whether that be a conversation or a speech. You tailor your message to your audience. You're going to talk to people you know in a conversation, but how you present it might change. If you're telling a story to your best friend, you might include details that you won't include when you tell that same story to your parents or to a stranger. I mean, you're going to change your message based on who you're talking to, and that counts in our conversations as well as when you present a speech. Telling a story for maximum impact. We're going to talk a lot about storytelling in this speech class because that is how you truly do connect with your audience. And so you're going to tell stories that create that maximum impact, that draw your audience in, that let them see the world through your eyes. So you tell it for the maximum impact and you're gonna adjust based on feedback from your audience. Online, we're gonna have a little bit more difficulty changing things for how your audience gives feedback because you won't see your audience, it won't be live. However, when you are in a classroom and you're getting feedback from the audience, you'll adjust that. So online, whether that be Zoom or recorded, it's difficult to change it based on feedback. So you need to practice both conversations and public speaking in person to truly learn how you do that. Public speaking is different, of course, than conversation, in that we don't really make 3x5 cards with keynote outline in order to have a conversation with a friend or to have a conversation with family. No, we just go in there and tell them. In this course, of course, we're going to have a more structured approach. You're going to take time to write your full sentence outline. You're then going to make that into your keyword outline. And then from there, you're going to adjust it and you're going to work on the presentation through practice. That's a lot more structure than bursting into the house and saying, hey, everybody, I got to tell you something. Public speaking uses more formal language because we don't share a lot of those little connections that we have in our conversations with people. There's no inside jokes that, oh yeah, I get that, I remember then. And there's lingo or words that we utilize around friends that others don't understand. Perhaps at work you have a lot of technical terms. Instead, when you're doing public speaking, you have to use words that connect to everyone in your audience. So you use more formal language, language that connects to the most amount of people in your audience that is possible. And you deliver differently. Very rarely in a conversation do friends give you that, oh, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of uninterrupted talking time, go. Instead, conversations tend to happen a lot more rapidly. There's a lot more interruptions. There's a lot more breaks. In public speaking, you might have to do a presentation for 5, 6, 7 minutes where you're the only one talking and you're the only one receiving the feedback. So you deliver differently in public speaking than you do in person or a conversation. Now, nervousness and glossophobia. I'd love to say, it'll go away, don't worry about it, you won't have it, you will have it. Even if you're recording speeches, even if you're presenting on Zoom, no matter where you are presenting in front of an audience, whether that be a small group of 5 to 10 people or an auditorium of people, it's normal to have anxiety, to have some fear. Matter of fact, it can actually be kind of good. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But let's understand where it comes from. Our human mind is basically watching out for us. It wants to keep us safe, wants to ensure that we don't get eaten by the polar bear, or we don't do something crazy that's dangerous to us. And for that reason, our primitive mind even has a fight, flight, or freeze syndrome, where when we're faced with anxiety and high stress, we either get ready to fight, we get ready to run, or we just freeze. Now, when you're facing a bear, fighting may not be that great of an idea. Running, well, probably a pretty good idea. Freezing, playing dead, that's another option. But when you're delivering a speech, none of those options are good for you. So what you have to learn is to understand that you'll have those feelings, but you work through them. And this is where it becomes good, is that without the nervousness that we feel, we wouldn't have that sense of accomplishment when we finish our speech. In fact, we wouldn't have that sense of accomplishment, if we didn't have the fight, flight, or fear when we're climbing a mountain. Part of it is overcoming ourselves and doing what we know we need to do. So for that reason, fear and nervousness is normal in public speaking, and it's not detrimental. In fact, when you get through, it's that gives you that sense of accomplishment. We'll talk more about this later in the course. This is just an introduction. I'll give you a quick how to get your audience to love you in 60 seconds, as well as we will talk about other methods to overcome fear. Dealing with nervousness, acquire speaking experience. That's what a lot of this public speaking class is about, giving you that initial experience. getting you into the pool, getting you to swim a little bit, getting you to feel more comfortable, to understand, hey, I know how to build a speech. So now that I know how to build a speech, I can deliver it. And by getting those experiences, you'll become a better public speaker. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Yes, you can over-prepare. You can over-prepare and increase your stress and make it even more difficult for you to deliver. But if you practice a speech 4 to 6 times before delivery, and you practice in the way that you'll actually be delivering, you'll find that preparing reduces the stress and gives you the opportunity, by doing it multiple times, to see where you need to increase or improve your speech, and things that you like and things you don't like in your presentation. So prepare, prepare, prepare. Think positive. Cognitive restructuring. Of course, we all have these fears when doing public speaking that something's going to go terribly wrong. I'm going to trip. I'm going to drop my note cards. I'm going to forget my speech in the middle of it. I'm going to use filler words. Instead of just letting those hang out there as negative, think about how you can change your thoughts. I'm going to forget my speech, and then I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to go ahead, look at my note cards, and go on. You just took that negative, made it a positive. I'm going to trip, I know when I'm going up. So how do you change that to positive? Well, when I'm entering the stage, I'm going to use the handrail, so if I do trip, I don't fall. And I'm also going to look in front of me to make sure I'm not tripping over a cord or something. So you can change those negative thoughts and turn them positive. Visualize being successful in your speech. Don't visualize the failure or the inabilities. Instead, like a basketball player who visualizes the ball going through the hoop. The baseball player, the softball player that visualizes the bat hitting the ball. All these are forms of visualization. Do them with your speech. Visualize you get up there and you present a great speech and you get the grade that you want. Visualize that. And then it's easier to make it happen. And then understand your audience doesn't know your speech. The audience doesn't know you're nervous. Those are all things your audience doesn't know. So don't go up and tell them, oh, I'm really nervous about presenting, because you just told your audience. Instead, go back to the visualization. I'm going to go up there, I'm going to deliver my attention getter, and I'm going to draw my audience in, and they're going to love this. So realize there are a lot of things your audience doesn't know. And for that reason, if you forget a part of your speech, just keep going. You got this. Don't expect perfection. It's hard to be perfect when delivering a speech. It truly is difficult. So in order to get to the point where you're delivering good speeches, know your speech, don't memorize it. You may have written the perfect words, but you're going to hit a problem if you're trying to read from a script, because you're going to look up at your audience and you're going to lose your place. And then you won't know where you are on the paper, and that's going to cause the awkward pause, and that's going to cause additional stress. So instead you have your 3x5 cards with your keyword outline, and you're able to present, and you just use it in many of the same ways as you do a PowerPoint, where, oh, okay, I want to talk about knowing your speech and not memorizing it, so I can just look at that, and then I can expand upon it from my base of knowledge. Never give up because of a minor slip up. You may have started off with the speech and you may have stumbled on some words, but don't stop. Just keep going. Take that breath, recenter and refocus yourself, and then continue with your presentation. And like I said, I'm going to give you some pointers through the course that will help you to make your speech better. And you're not being graded against the best speech person in the class or the worst speech delivery in the class. I want to see progress for you, not against others, but for yourself. And that's my goal in the class, is to give you those tools to be a good public speaker. Yes, critical thinking is very important, because when you're delivering a speech, If you don't know your strengths and weaknesses, which requires self-reflection, requires you watching your speeches, requires you practicing your speeches, you may not improve your speeches as the semester goes on. So after each speech, you're going to take time to self-reflect. Give yourself 3 things you liked, 3 things you want to improve. And that will help you develop an understanding of where you're really strong in your public speaking, where you're weak, and allows you to grow as a public speaker. Communication process. This is very important for us because you have to understand whether you're in a conversation or you're in a public speaking setting. This is the same format you use. This is the traditional model that is normally used. It's not linear. Where linear is where we're talking we're sending out a message, nothing comes back. This is more the transactional, interactive type of model of public speaking, where you have the speaker. As the speaker, you have to craft the message. In public speaking, you have to write it out. You have to know, you have to have your thesis, what you're going to tell people, why you're telling them, how you're going to it, and then you have to craft the message. And then what channel are you using? Are you speaking to them on the phone? Are you speaking to them in person? Are you speaking to them via video? How are you sending that? What channel are you utilizing? This will also include not only the words you use, but your body gestures. Your nonverbal communication will also play into the channel that you're utilizing because you're sending multiple messages at one time, whether that be verbal or nonverbal. The listener. This is the important person. When you're doing a speech, you're not the important person, your audience is. And if you remember, you're trying to connect with that audience and with your listener, you end up sending better messages and are better received. Feedback is what information you get. When you tell a joke, do you get a giggle? Do you not get a laugh at all? Do you get hysterical laughing? So what type of feedback are they giving you during your presentation? And do you need to change anything as you're doing that? Interference. There's always going to be interference, and interference can fall into many categories. It could be actual sound. It could be the cat running across the room. It could be a plane or a train going by. It could also be biases. It could be resistance to your message. It could be a number of things that interfere. And the situation. Once again, we're going back to what is your setting? Are you delivering in person? Are you delivering online? So that comes into play as well. During the semester, I'm going to teach you about audience analysis. This is just a quick introduction to it and just a small portion of it. This goes into audience analysis where you're looking at social influences or cultural influences you might find. If you're talking to a low context culture, the words you utilize, choose, and how you present those are going to have a lot of meaning. On the other words, in other places, it might be high content, where basically it's not just the words you use, but how you deliver them. The applying to tradition, the cultural aspects will become more important to those. So as you can see here, this is just one small portion of audience analysis. We'll dive more into that later. But the thing to remember is that once again, your audience is going to be the main focus of your speech. So avoid ethnocentrism, which is where you feel that your culture, whether it be high content or low content culture, is the only way to deliver. Understand, we all have our prejudice and we have to overcome those. And so we adjust our speeches to meet what our audience expects. And we don't talk at our audience, we talk with them. We view our audience as important people, as individuals. That's the I-thou concept, where not only am I a person, but all of them are people. Meanwhile, the I-it is, I'm the person, they're the audience, as if they're an object. And you don't want to go there. So you want to avoid that no matter what the cultural setting or audience analysis you do is. So we talked about in this quick introduction the power of public speaking, the tradition, public speaking versus conversation, glossophobia, and the communication process. You're going to be successful in this class. You will be. And the main thing for me in this class is not the grades you got in here, but the grades you get when you're in the other class and you have to do a presentation. The job interview that you go to and you get the job. The promotion you get. You know, maybe it is the speech you give to your community that changes something for the better. So remember this as we're going into public speaking. You're going to have fear. You can overcome it. And in the end, this is going to be a class you utilize in your everyday life. If you have any questions, just post them down below. For the most part on the discussion boards, I let you communicate with your fellow students. I don't like jumping in and posting a lot of things because I feel like sometimes that cuts off the conversation. But explore. If you have questions, ask me, and I'll see you in class.